My guest today is Cynthia Swanson. She's the author of one of my favorite books, The Bookseller. It's a New York Times bestseller, USA Today bestseller. And when I heard she had a new book out, The Glass Forest, I was very excited to have her back on the show to talk about it. It is such a thriller, and it's going to be very challenging to not give too much away because we can't do that on Reading with Robin. And welcome her back to the show, Cynthia Swanson.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
Oh, wow. I am so happy to have you on, and you should see I think I'll post a picture of what this galley looks like. It looks well-loved and full of coffee stains and bent pictures, the way any great book should look. It's out today, February 6th, so it's very exciting to get to talk to you. For the New York Times best-selling author of The Bookseller, comes a gripping literary suspense novel about deeply troubled family and the three women who will shed light on its dark truths. It's always up to the women, isn't it?
It's always the women, right? Yeah, they have to figure that stuff out.
I know, and it is such a suspenseful novel, and I mean, the characters are just fabulous, and it really kept me thinking and guessing, and these kinds of books, I mean, what's the process in writing this? Because this is very different from The Bookseller. And how did you get the idea for this one and keeping all of these characters and their secrets straight and not spilling? Like, how do you do that as an author? Obviously, it's a skilled writer who can do this and make us just wonder and confuse us along the way.
Well, thank you. This idea roamed around in my head for a really long time, actually, before I even started The Bookseller, but it wasn't an idea that I felt I was ready to write at that time. So I kind of held off on it, and when we were in the process of publishing that was when I started writing this book. It's about 4 years ago that I started working on it on a very first draft. And it just sort of came from an idea of just thinking about a missing person and what it would be like if you were occupying that person's house and how that would feel and how could you resist just looking for clues around every corner and feeling a level of paranoia no matter what the situation. And then I just started putting the pieces together after that. It's a very plot-heavy book because of being a thriller. And so that really stretched me as a writer. The plot is much more complicated than in The Bookseller. So I had a lot to learn about structure and pacing to make sure that this book fell into place the way that it needed to, that all the pieces came together the way that they needed to. It's, as you mentioned, there's three characters, so it's there's three narrators that tell the story, and I had to write one of them. One of them sort of tells the backstory. Her name is Celia, and Celia's character, I started writing it where I was just writing one chapter and then the next and the next through the three characters, and then I realized I really needed to write Celia's story because I needed to know what happened before I could go back. So I wrote her whole story. And then once I had that done, then I was able to fill in the pieces of the present moment, which isn't the present day because the story takes place in 1960. Sure. But Celia's backstory starts during World War II. So once I had her in place, then I was able to work on the things that were happening in the present day 1960 with the two other characters, Angie and Ruby.
It's interesting because I was wondering how you sort of do that, and it's always so neat to get the backstory as it segues into present day, well, like you say, the 60s, 1960, writing it, present day then, and then sort of seeing how what happened in the past might be sort of hidden in the present characters' description of what's going on and how they're moving the story along. It's just also very interesting, also with events that were happening at the time and what people were concerned about, and World War II, vets coming home and how that affected life and marriage and family and what the expectations were. There's just so much, and what it was like for women, as you're reading the book, knowing that this takes place 50 some odd years ago. But and also the title is so intriguing, The Glass Forest. And I love when a last name is part of a title in that way. Because,
I like that too.
Right, and the house and the whole thing. I mean, what was the research like for this, and what, I don't know, or how much of that did you do, or sketching out the locations and what did you need to know about architecture and forestry and plant life and
no wonder it took me 4 years between the time I started writing it until we're seeing this book in print. It's a long, long labor of love. But yeah, there was a lot of research. As with the bookseller, my process is that I do very little research during a first draft because I really like research. I like it almost too much, and I find that it bogs me down. I get where it's just such a rabbit hole, and I'm I'll start researching some little detail, and hours have gone by, and I've learned all kinds of cool stuff, maybe including the little detail I was looking for, but I also have, written maybe a paragraph if I'm lucky. So I can't really do that during a first draft. So I take a lot of guesses, and I take a lot of notes, and it's pretty sketchy in the beginning. And then I go back and fill in those pieces and either reinforce what I guessed or make changes accordingly to make sure that things are fitting in the way that I thought that they should, and whether my instincts were correct or not. Sometimes they are, sometimes they're not. So it depends on the modifications I have to make at that point.
And so does sometimes the information that you found, the research, drive the story at all, or change the story as far as the plot, or is it more that the story needs to keep in line with what the research has shown you?
It's a little bit of both, but yeah, sure. There are definitely times that the research showed me what I needed to do. For instance, Celia, who is a character who grows up in Brooklyn, and she grows up in this Finnish socialist cooperative in Brooklyn. And when I initially wrote the book, I didn't really know what I wanted her to be. I knew that I wanted her to be from Brooklyn and, be a second-generation American. And for reasons of the story, I didn't want her to be Jewish and I didn't want her to be Catholic. And so, I needed her to have some ethnicity. And so I thought, well, who could that be? And I started doing some research, and I found these Finnish socialists in this neighborhood in Brooklyn. It's now Sunset Park, but they used to call it Fintown. And I had no idea. And I ended up learning up all kinds of cool things about Fintown, and I ended up going there and looking at an apartment that was for sale about a year and a half ago. I contacted the realtor and told him what I was doing and asked if I could see it, which was really cool. And he ended up knowing a whole bunch about Fintown and the history and giving me all kinds of details, which was really, really fun. It was just really serendipitous. But yeah, sometimes that can be driven by just something like that I had no idea about, but it ended up fitting the story really well.
It's so interesting because I didn't, when I was reading it, a lot of times when I'm reading a book and I read a detail like that, I think, oh, this is interesting. I wonder, because there was also one in the book, I guess also in upper New York or near Harlem. Was there also in New York?
Yep.
Manhattan?
Yeah, there was also Fintown up near Harlem, yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So that was interesting. So then
they were small. I mean, those are very small ethnic communities as opposed to, the Jewish community or the Irish community or a lot of the other ethnic communities that were in New York at the time, the early 20th century. But it fit right with the character for this story. So
is there still any evidence of Fintown? Any restaurants or bakeries?
Yeah, there's a little bit, but not much. And I mean, the building. the apartment that Celia lived in the alcove that building is still called that, and I have pictures of it, just the front of it. And he took me down in the basement, and there was still the meeting room down there where they would have their co-op meetings in the basement. It was just pretty cool.
That is really interesting. I mean, and I'm speaking with Cynthia Swanson. We're talking about her brand new novel. It's out today. It's called The Glass Forest, and you can find Cynthia on her website at CynthiaSwansonAuthor.com, also on Facebook at Cynthia Swanson Author. I fixed that on the little post that I did. And you're on Twitter and Instagram and everywhere. And it's really, what's it like? So this is your second novel. When the book comes out, I don't know, I guess around the same time as the bookseller, when the bookseller came out also, there are galleys out and people are, there are a lot of advanced copies floating around. So you get a lot of information. But when the masses, when the book reaches the people, what is that like when you start to hear back, from the readers?
Yeah, it's fascinating when you start to really see it real like that. I'm doing an event on publication date when this will be airing at the Tattered Cover, which is our local indie, one of our local indie stores here. And I'll be there, and there'll be a big rows and rows of copies of The Glass Forest there, I'm sure, because that's how it was for the bookseller. And it is a little stunning to see that in a bookstore, to walk in and just see copies and copies, rows and rows of your book, especially if you're doing an event and you feel like, okay, maybe they're going to sell.
Well,
maybe there are enough people here to buy those. That would be great.
Absolutely. I'm recommending that everybody get their hands on a copy of The Glass Forest. And I love the green that Celia wears and the whole connection to the forest and the green. I just imagine this whole sort of emerald city being laid out for the release of this novel, and it's funny. I found myself drawn more and more to thrillers and suspense, and I never really thought of myself as reading in that genre as much. And my last few reads have been these, where Emily said, that's not what you usually read, and it's funny. This one I read because it was like Cynthia's next book. Of course I'm going to read it. But then I was like, wait, you know what? I really like this genre. It was really kept me guessing and, hoping certain things might work out a certain way, or, you get very connected to certain characters or storylines, or and I was reading, the bookseller was purchased by Julia Roberts. Are they filming that yet, or is that just, is that in?
They're not filming it yet, but they did just hire a screenwriter. It's the same screenwriter who did the screenplay for the movie The Lake Effect, so that's kind of a good fit. It's kind of
another one of those. Take this one also. This one is like, right? Because like this one plays out.
So that's kind of cool. So it's, I just wait to hear whatever I'm going to hear. That kind of process is really outside my control. So
I know.
All I can do is keep writing new books, which is what I want to do anyway.
Well, please do, Cynthia. Please do keep writing new books. Which is your favorite way of connecting with your readers, whether it's Facebook or on Twitter or the Goodreads groups, or where do you like to hang out online?
I hang out in all of those. I probably am on Facebook more than anywhere else, and I like Facebook because I'm not limited in what I can say and because we can converse back and forth. But I'm on Twitter as well, and I'm on Goodreads, and I'm happy to chat with people there, and I always talk about books and see what everybody else is reading. But it's the social media is fun. I'd probably spend more time on there than I should.
Well, you're clearly not alone. Figuratively, I mean, yes, you are absolutely not alone. And do you you Skype into book clubs, or you can do them on Facebook Live now and all of that, so people can get in touch with you. You can go to Cynthia Swanson, author, or .com, or on Facebook, and send a message if you'd like to pick this book, this is a great pick for your book club, and also to have the author's company during part of your book club. I mean, how much fun is that? So
yeah, that's really fun. I love doing book clubs, and I'm always happy to chat with readers.
And they keep coming. It is just, I mean, I find so many of them on the Reading with Robin Facebook page, and more. And it seems like just a sense of community, and reading certainly is a solitary business for the most part, but people enjoy getting together. And then when you have a book, it's kind of like having a vegetable on your plate. You feel really good about it.
Right.
It's like,
and I think having those book groups, it gives you a continuity of friendship. I actually met with a book club last night, and they had just formed last year, but they all felt like they were sort of missing that piece in their lives at this point. They were all very busy women with wives and families and work and everything that they were doing, and they all kind of felt like they'd lost a lot of their really intense friendships that they'd had as their lives got busier. So they were really excited that this book group might become their thing. That's their regular thing where they can get together. And I said, that's true of most of the book clubs that I meet. Some of them have been together for 30 years, and they say this is our glue, is each other, which is really cool.
Well, yeah, it's a crazy busy world, and when there's something that and people are very committed to their book clubs. Oh, yeah. And like you say, 30 years I've met people that have been together, men's club, that they've been together for over 50 years, right. And they still meet at this town pub, more or less. I thought that was just amazing. And, you don't think of men as often as being in book clubs. Of course they are. But when you could commit to something and, the rest of the club counts on you, it's not a really great book club when there's, one person or two people. So there's that sense of just people really do look forward to that time, and then to discuss a book and which one, the oldest side conversation also, of course, but it just is the glue, these books. Right. And so the bookseller certainly was a huge book club pick. And this new one, The Glass Forest, and I will post a picture of what this looks like. I did that with another galley. I read these books hard. Some people look like, you can't even tell a spine has not been cracked, but that is not the case with my copies. And so we talked about about the women a little bit in the story, but the men, the brothers, the oh so lovely brothers. How did you draw these creepy guys? Like, I was trying to find some redemption in these men. I mean, I guess there is, but we have to level our characters in some way. But
that's right. It's
a little tough, Cynthia. I'm not going to lie on these guys.
It's funny because whenever I do a bookseller book club, people always ask me about the husband and Catherine's husband, Lars, who's perfect. And they're like, he's just too wonderful. How can he be so wonderful? And we talk about that. And for the last couple of years, I've said, if it makes you feel any better, the book I'm writing now, the guys are really creepy.
So creepy. Just
so I can write creepy guys.
Yeah. No,
but I mean, and I think what has to happen if you're going to have creepy like that is there has to be a reason, and that's why in very small layers we get the history of those brothers and what happened to them when they were younger and over the years and how they have become who they've become. Because I think, I mean, you can have a mystery, and in any mystery there's always like the bad guy, and the bad guy is just the bad guy. But to me, I like to think about the psychology of that. What makes you the bad guy? What happened? You weren't just born that way. So, I like to have those pieces come out with a character like either one of those two brothers, and I think that makes the character more compelling and more memorable, and not necessarily sympathetic, but at least then you have an understanding of how they got there, and that was important to me with them.
Absolutely, and I enjoy reading and getting those clues and those snippets, and when am I going to find out why they are the way they are. We certainly know that Henry's come back from war and something's happened, and so he has his reasoning and his line of conducting himself. And then you meet Paul and you wonder where he came from, where his story is, and as you learn how they grew up and what happened, then there's a reason. But they don't all need to be likable, and we've had this conversation on Reading with Robin many times, and characters do not obviously have to be likable, or there needs to be a reason, but there's like ongoing conversation about likable characters in books, and I mean, can tell where you stand on that, but have you heard the same from readers? I mean, not necessarily about your books, but just in general, that conversation.
Sure, and I think your protagonists have to be likable. You have to have somebody to cheer for. And in The Glass Forest, you're not cheering for those guys, but you are cheering for the women, and that's the way the story is going to run. I hope that the book will still appeal to men, because men kind of like that creepiness part.
Oh,
and I don't think they necessarily care that they're not cheering for these guys. The creepy part is good. The men that have read the book that have given me reviews really liked it a lot, and I think that's why.
This is a book for everybody.
Yeah, it's a page turner. But it is certainly the women that are the characters that we come to cheer for in this particular story. So not necessarily
as well
the men.
We should be. But it is, I mean, and that's the thing, this genre appeals across the board for sure. And I think that it's interesting to get the perspective of different types of readers with all books, but this kind, when you're talking about these kinds of characters, I think that would be really interesting. And I rarely go online to see what anybody writes about anything, but I do know people spend an awful lot of time sharing their opinions. I need my time to read. I just do. I have an account, but I'm rarely on. If ever. I know I get notifications once in a while, but it is interesting to see the way somebody comes at a story and why they come to it the way they do. Everybody has a backstory. So I think that's one of the really interesting things about discussing books, and certainly at a book club, when you see the way people come at a topic. And what are you reading? What are you loving? Are you blurbing? What's coming up?
You'll laugh, but I'm actually reading The Glass Forest. I'm almost done with it, but I do that when the book comes out in hardcover, when I get my first copy from the publisher. I like to read it cover to cover, because it's the first time I've seen a completely corrected copy and the way that it's going to go out to readers. So I want to have the same experience that readers have had. So that's what I do.
So that's what you're reading now? You're reading.
That's what I'm reading right now. I'm almost done with it, but I wanted to just finish. I've been reading it for the last couple of days, and I wanted to do it before the release of the book.
Right.
So, right before that, I just read A Gentleman in Moscow, which was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
So yeah. It's a great book, so that was good. And I just read Mira T. Lee's Everything Here is Beautiful, which was wonderful.
Isn't
she's
that beautiful?
She's amazing. Yeah, I'm going to meet her at an event. We're doing an event together in Minneapolis next week. If you have any Minneapolis listeners out there, you should come on to our Literature Lovers Night Out. It's going to be a lot of fun.
Oh,
I'm
absolutely.
looking forward to meeting her. Yeah.
If you send me the information, I will post it. That's at, why am I blanking on the wonderful woman who runs those name? I'm just blanking.
Pamela Klingerhorn.
Yes, Pamela. Yeah. It's just a horrible cold of mine. It's like certain things are just muffled in there. I'll hang up and go, Pamela Klingerhorn. I know one of my ideas is to get out there also. I would love to be there. And Mira was here reading at Point Street Reading Series, and we're having her back to do a book club in March. I loved Everything Here is Beautiful. Emily and I both read it. We loved it.
Great book, yeah.
Oh, that's going to be a wonderful event. I will absolutely share that. So send that to me, and I will absolutely share that with everybody. And do you have a stack? I mean, are you a fast reader?
No, I wish I was. If I could change one thing about myself, that would be it. I don't care about. I don't want to be taller or thinner or anything else. I just want to read fast.
Faster reader. I would take a few things. I don't know that would be the top of my list, but I would also, because I would love to be able to read. There's just no end to the ones that I want to read.
Exactly.
And I'm not particularly. I'm definitely not as fast, but I read every word. And I don't know if people do. Like, I've been accused of reading every word, and I'm like, I don't know. That's how you read a book. What if I missed the word that I needed?
Exactly. I don't want to skim anything.
No skimming. Yeah. But I love that you reread your book in hardcover. I don't know that I'm sure authors do it, but I don't recall in all of these years having interviews ever anybody saying that. So that may be like a Cynthia Swanson thing in my head. It will be everybody read their hardcover when it arrives, and it's The Glass Forest, and it's out today, and it is just fabulous. I've been, cheering it on and sharing it with, people are always asking what I'm reading, and this is one that you just do not want to miss. And find Cynthia on her Facebook page as Cynthia Swanson Author. You can also find her on CynthiaSwansonAuthor.com and on Twitter, on Instagram. Do you manage your own Instagram? Is that your thing?
I do. I've been asked by my publisher to step it up, so I'm trying. But
oh, really? Yeah, they're so bossy, aren't they?
Well, they're also young. They're lovely. They're wonderful. They're dynamic. They're young, but they know how to do Instagram. And I'm like, man, they just got to give me lessons. I think.
I know.
But I'm trying. I'm trying to get better about it. So I post a lot of book and cat pictures.
Well, that's good. People love animals.
I guess that's
they
what
do.
People
they love animals and books. They absolutely do. And I know it's not enough to write the book, go out and promote it. They want you doing pictures and keeping everything up to date. And I know it's a lot. But I think that I guess it's just a necessary thing. And I know that people like to see the content across different platforms. So now that you finished reading your book, The Glass Forest, you can get up on. I think we took. Oh, you know what we did? There's a great picture that my daughter took. It's coming up of your book.
Oh, good.
You'll see it when it comes out. That's a fabulous Instagram picture. It's coming out in something she worked on that she paired with your book. I'm just remembering Well, and also we have the books so far ahead that by the time they come out, we're like, wait, we read that, we did that, And I read the book in the fall, I think, but I reread it in anticipation of our conversation where I can't give any of the details out or ruin any of the storyline. But that's really interesting about Finntown and the research that you did. What was before I let you go, another favorite part of the research, for which part of the story?
Oh, I would say probably Door County, Wisconsin, and we have family friends who have a cottage there on North Bay, which is where the character of Angie has her cottage as well. So it's always great to have an excuse to go to Door County. We try to go once every year or two and spend some time up there, but it's just it really is idyllic in the way that, and it's still idyllic like that. But I do know that the people that are there if you're going to write about Dorkani, they really want you to get it right.
Yeah, well, yeah, because
they're
they'll tell you.
very proud of that area, as well they should be. So I was trying very carefully to make sure I had my details correct as far as Dorkani goes. Hopefully I did it
and they will tell you, right?
They will. Oh, they'll tell me.
You take a left at that light, it would never be a right or whatever.
Exactly, yeah.
So, yeah, well, I've never been there, but the way it is described, it does sound like just a really beautiful place, too.
It's lovely. It's lovely. It gets called the Cape Cod of the Midwest, so that kind of gives you a little bit of a sense. So,
totally got the sense. And the way you wrote it, in the description, and in the desire to get back there, for Angie to get back there and raise a child and all of that. Well, I'm not going to give too much away or any more away. That's it. Very excited. And everybody pick up a copy of The Glass Forest and visit CynthiaSwansonAuthor.com, see where she'll be, and if you're where she is, go visit and hear about the book firsthand, and I will be sharing it with everybody. And I thank you so much for appearing on Reading with Robin, and keep me posted on everything. I hope it's not 4 years till the next one.
I hope not either. Working on it, so we'll see.
Okay. No pressure.
Right.
Thank you so much, and enjoy your books and cats.
Thank you, Robin. Thanks so much.
Cynthia.